now that we've talked about the importance of student growth and we've accessed our ASG reports, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the data on those ASG reports and learn how to start interpreting them. So if you will take out your ASG reports, the projected ASG report as well as the summary report, we're going to actually start looking more into the actual data and looking how to interpret that. Now that you have that out, first thing I want you to pull out is the projected report. We're going to use our PowerPoint to go through and ask some questions and be able to actually find out what is on that ASG report and be able to kind of drill down, and we're going to look at specific students and drill down to that student level. So as you have the projected report in front of you, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to identify and circle the student with the lowest RIT score, and also I want you to identify and circle the student with the highest RIT score. Now, if you did the student with the lowest as Diamante Simbola, you did a great job with that. And with the highest as Blaine, then you did a great job with that as well. So now that we have those circled, now I want you to circle the class mean RIT score. Now remember, this is a summary, so you're going to find that down below. Great. Now, what do you notice about the class mean RIT compared to those two students that we just circled? What you're going to notice is that the mean falls right in between those two. It's closer to the lower one, and our high student Blaine is much higher than the class mean RIT. So this gives you some information about those students compared to the class mean, as well as where your class is going to situate. Now I want you to circle their growth projections and compare them. Now, they have very different growth projections. Blaine only is expected to grow 4 points this year, whereas Diamante they're expected to grow 11 points. So what's the difference between these two students? I want you to talk with your partners at your tables and talk about the difference between those two growth things, and then also our last and final question, which is how are you going to address the fact that there's a different expectation for growth in your classrooms? And then we're going to kind of share that out. So at this point, I'd let them share out. The main point of what we would want to get to at this point in time is that there is a norm for growth, and then how are you going to get to that? Okay, so as you're sharing back out to us, what I've heard is that, first of all, our lower students, the growth is expected of them. And we actually need that growth in order for them to catch up with their grade level. This norm is built upon thousands of students at that grade level, at that beginning RIT score, what they were able to perform in growth that year. So it's very easy for us to say that our low students can't grow that much, but in actuality, the thousands of students before them have performed at that level and been able to get that growth. And so what we're looking for is that they're able to make that typical growth that other students have. Now, our low students, we want them to actually make more than that. So one of the conversations that you can have at your schools and with your school sites is, how can we get some of our students to actually make more than that growth? Can we give them a double dose of reading? Can we give them a double dose in order to get that growth? Now, the other question that I asked you all to talk about was, how are you going to talk to your students about the fact that we're expecting different levels of growth from them? And so one of the things that I hope that you talked about was that we talk about how everybody has strengths and differences and weaknesses in different areas. And so talking about that maybe in math you're expected to grow more, but in reading you're expected to grow less. And so this becomes a very individual journey for each student. And so the culture in your classroom has to become very individual. So the next thing that I'd like you to do is turn over to your summary report, and we're going to look at what happened from the beginning of the year when we had these growth projections to the end of the year when we have what they did for the year. So we're going to circle the same students on the report. So if you'll circle Diamante and Blaine again and see what happened, what were their scores, and then look at their growth projection met and circle that. Look at the growth index and analyze, was there growth even if they didn't make their growth target? Now circle the percentage of students who met or exceeded their projected RIT. Again, this is a summary, so you're going to find this down at the bottom. Now, what do you think is a typical percentage? What would be the norm down there? Well, the norm is 50%. So this teacher got 57.1%, so slightly above average or slightly above the norm. So this is an excellent, this is slightly above average of where we would want our teachers to be. The higher we can get that growth percentage, the better for all of our students. You're going to circle the spring mean RIT and compare that to the fall mean RIT. Was there growth overall for the class? We want to circle the standards deviations. Did we bring a class that was far apart to a class that was a little bit closer together so we don't have those outliers? And the last thing that we want to look at is, are there trends? Do we see that the higher students made more growth and the lower students didn't? You know, do we want to look at different content areas? Was there more growth in reading than in math?